like charcoal forge better, but I need a trailer to pull all the charcoal.
No doubt.
It burns a little fast. Try not to spray you guys for a minute. For a while. This is an old piece of steel. A lot of what I'm doing right now is just trying to pop a lot of the rust and scale off it. This has been in the ground for about 300 years. So it's an old piece of plow steel.
Wow. So it was unearthed or recovered recently?
Yeah, it's from an old farm we live near. I'm just going around scavenging all the old steel. It's so rare and it's so beautiful. And this steel's just like wood. It has a grain in it. So when you polish it all out and etch it, it looks like a piece of wood.
Wow.
Yeah. It's hard to come by this stuff anymore.
Yeah,
but it's pretty filthy when you first start forging it. But it's starting to clean up from the point back as I'm working it here. I get about 14 hours runtime off that in this little forge. It sounds impressive and stuff, but it's just really concentrated fire with a lot of insulation. But the fire in here is only about that big around and that long. It's pretty good on fuel. But it all goes downhill from there. As they get bigger, they start eating it. I've had some forges in the past where I couldn't run a tank like that. About 2.5 or 3 minutes in, the top of the tank would freeze off. You could hear the ice floating around on the propane.
Somebody's hiding from us.
Hello.
And one of the stops that we had made, everybody was sitting down, he felt like his feet were sweating. So all he did was he took off his sports sock, put it in his pocket, put his wool sock back on, put on his combat boot, put on his muckluck. We started walking, and within 20 minutes, he started complaining his foot was, you know, killing him. It was sore in the whole bit. They threw him on a skidoo, rushed him back to, at that time we were on alert, rushed him back to alert, and he had already had 3rd-degree frostbite on the front of his foot, lost his foot. They had to take it off. He was the only injury of 124 of us on that trip.
So
Just
you
because
wore
he
2
took off-
socks?
Huh?
You wore a sports sock, a wool sock, then a boot, then a muckluck?
Yeah.
And he took off the sports
He
sock.
took off the sports sock, and
but
that
left on
was
the
just
wool.
enough
Wow.
to turn around and let the core to come in. He lost, who said that? Wick.
Lost his wick.
He lost his wicking layer.
Yeah, it's
And that's the
moving.
thing, a lot of them, like I've got another sleeping bag that I have here, which is, a Coleman sleeping bag, and it's rated for -12, and it's like -5 comfortable or something like that. -12, I don't know what they were thinking when they did that rating. I sleep warm, very warm.
Yeah, he does. He sleeps a lot warmer.
Oh yeah, like I sleep very warm. I like once, because Wayne and I are out all the time. For a prime example, I've been sleeping. We've been out -20 or something like that.
Yeah.
Ice cold, and he wakes up like, oh my God, I'm cold. I'm like, dude, you want my Ranger blanket? Well, no, because you're gonna be. I'm sweating. I'm like trying to pull stuff off.
That was only
Yeah.
one time. And I said, yes, give me that, please.
Yes,
you
he
don't
did.
need it. I will take it.
Right, Mike? Hey, dude, you got a blanket? Remember? Remember we talking about that last night?
Yeah.
Oh, we got a breeze, bring him.
Even at 500 new, when you think about it, we were talking about it earlier, about you don't have to.
All right, I got a question for you.
This one here is basically, it is.
That sleeping bag, you can get down pretty cold, huh? You said -65?
That was the coldest I slept in when they were brand new.
Yeah, it's pretty epic. What does it weigh?
And that keeps you awake. And then that just goes right
Waiting for somebody to bust me on that one.
I'd say between
And
10
it's tight. It's tight.
You're looking at
It's,
about 15, 20 pounds.
I bet you're looking at 18 pounds. That was my guess,
And
yeah.
I'm touching the side.
Because
15 to
I have the old American Extreme Cold bag.
Very similar.
Very similar. It has duck down, polyester lining, canvas
it
on
got
the
the middle
outside,
zipper?
middle zipper. It's got the box. That's actually what I used in Canada, right?
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's inside a Gore-Tex bivvy of the modern system, so I mixed
Yeah.
the both, old and new. And that goes down to -20
Yeah.
Fahrenheit. It got down to -15, and I was right at the edge of that bag for
Really?
sure. I was cold. Dude, it's 30 years old.
Yeah.
But
Oh yeah, okay.
that
so
one's
yeah,
from like the
I was thinking this
70s
one.
and 80s, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a 12-pound bag.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I mean, that's a 12-pound bag. So I'm looking at this. That's epic. But I was like, I bet that adds 6 pounds.
Oh yeah, it does. And that's the biggest thing, a huge thing. Definitely, and I've said that before. You can still go out and have a great time during the winter time, but that's where. What's the word? Oh, the word's right there.
I know.
The compromise.
No, I know what to do.
Toboggan.
You bring Peter
Exactly.
with you.
No, you
I'm always extra gear, extra whatever. Could you do that every night? You know, and feel that constant cold all the time. You know.
I wouldn't have. That's when I would have been sleeping by a long fire.
Well, you making a point, and it's about being in Canada with your bag, and it started getting cold or whatever. Like, picture if that had to turn, in your case, if that had got wet, and you got that cold.
Everything was wet. Rained
So-
twice a day.
Yeah,
Yeah, at one point I had, well, I mean, every night, or rather every day,
yeah.
I would take my sleep system, and half the day, I would take the face, half, I'd flip it over, so that part that's absolutely soaked in the bottom of the bivvy, just from, I mean, you know, from compressing on the ground, like water would come up.
Yeah.
It was all moss, it was all wet, all the time, laying in it, right? So, half the day I'd fold it up, other half of the day, I'd switch it up and I'd do the other side,
Yeah.
right? So I had this thing, right? And I never let anything get inside ever. Because before I used to do all the flips, I'd just roll it a little bit and make sure that it was protected. There was one day I felt adventurous. I saw the sun. It was a big deal. I found a single spot array of some
Able to
ray
hang it up.
that came in. I literally put it on I made a fresh clothesline just to hang it, you know, and I'm watching it start to steam, and then it starts raining.
Oh.
You know, so now I'm like freaking out trying to get everything back in, you know, so.
Things don't dry at 100%.
It is what it is, you know.
Either.
No.
Nothing dries.
You know, so everything was wet, so, you know, my bag was a bit compromised, and everything was cold, so, and it's old.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I really pushed it to the limit. I got to the point where I had like a little slit just so like my mouth and nose could like let out moisture, because I started getting that like moisture wet
around the rim.
right around the rim. But it was so cold that I had, you know what I mean? I was taking socks and I was putting them in my armpits, warming them up, because my feet were numb in my bag, right? That's how bad it was. And then after 15-20 minutes, these are warm. I take those off. I put the warm ones on my feet. And I'd be like, whoa, yes. And I would take those, put them under my armpit. 20 minutes later, I swapped that. I would keep doing that. I would do it 5 times. Regardless, it usually took about 5 times. And then my feet would be able to maintain that warmth now that the fabric was warm. And my feet weren't cold for the rest of the night. And I still had that extra pair that I kept in my bag with me for the morning, because I'd swap it because the moisture going in my boot. I mean, I had to have a very sophisticated system on how I was layering things in the middle of the night in my bag.
So him saying that about his feet kind of end the whole thing. To go back on those that might have learned something here from hypothermia, what was that an example of? Did he just explain with his feet?
Yeah, he was starting to go into hypothermia, and it's all his.
He was starting to get the first stage of hypothermia, and the veins in his feet were starting to constrict, pulling the heat. So him doing that, warming his socks up, slowly. Not rapidly, putting them in hot water or all the mist that you hear everybody doing all the time. Just something as simple as that. Putting a dry pair of socks on, taking his other socks under his armpits, warming them up.
Exactly.
Hot part of the body, and then putting them on his feet.
Swapping them back and forth.
Because they're just an extra little warmth.
Right.
Got the blood flowing back again in his feet, that now his body's fine.
Exactly. After like 5 times, all of a sudden my feet could sustain the heat, and I was good for the rest of the night, and I didn't need to swap it anymore, and I slept like a baby, man.
Most of the time in cold weather, that's the biggest thing. People, most of the time, your feet start to get cold, and once your feet start to get cold, the rest of your body is toast. If you can't get your feet warm, you're toast. Like, there's no way you're gonna get the rest of your body turned on and warmed up. And I've seen that even myself. My toes start to get cold or something like that. You got to get them warm, because then the rest of your body gets cold.
There we go. So you get in a groove, and then you slowly start to add a little more speed, a little more pressure. I think they'll, yeah, there we go. You want to blow very, very gently, or in some cases you can let the wind do it. Let it do it now. You can even, depending on the breeze, move it back and forth a little bit, so you don't have to blow it all. I want to speed this up though. Depending on your tinder bundle, or how strong your ember is, you can blow sparks or the ember all the way through to your hand. So you want a nice tight tinder bundle.